This is Pokemon Infinite Fusion, the fan game with over 210,000 different Pokemon combinations, and we are here today to see if we can beat a hardcore Nuzlocke using only ground types. That means if a Pokemon faints is considered dead, the level cap is the next leader's ace. No active items can be used in battle, and we play the games on set mode. Now, a couple of things before we start this run. I actually did this run a few months ago, back before the release of 6.0. So that means a couple of things. Number one, none of the new Pokemon are here, obviously. Additionally, the way that Pokemon fusions work is a little bit different as well. Pokemon like Charizard used to always be fire regardless, but now if you use Charizard's body, you get flying. So there are a few Pokemon that I use on this run that would not be the same typings if I were to do this run now. But this run was a lot of fun to do, and I thought I had lost the footage, so I'm not going to waste it. We're going to be releasing it now. Just keep in mind, it's not 6.0. As always, when I do these monotype runs, I'm going to go ahead and start off with every non-legendary ground Pokemon in the game. That way I can get a more diverse fusion pool. After choosing Mudkip as our starter Pokemon and beating the crap out of Rando, we're going to go ahead and grab ourselves a couple of new friends before we ultimately go ahead and fuse up Cubone and Shroomish as our first Pokemon pair. Then we go ahead and grab ourselves a Bun Kid over on Route 3, which we go ahead and take the Bunnery and fuse it up with Rhyhorn to get ourselves the oddly cute Rhyhorn. But now it's time for us to take on Brock and his Steel-type Pokemon. His first Pokemon is his regular ordinary Duck, and we go ahead and take it down after just a couple of Bone Club. His first Pokemon now is his regular ordinary Duck, which we can take down in just one Bone Club. When his Ace T Jr. comes out, he starts off by going for Copycat, copying our Bone Club, doing basically nothing to us, as we do about 50% on our first shot. After insisting on setting up a Leech Seed for some reason, we can go ahead and safely take it down after just a couple more Bone Clubs, securing our Boulder Badge. Outside of Mount Moon, we run into Nurse Joy tending to this wounded Geodude, and that's when Brock swoops in out of nowhere with a welding kit, an Aaron, and a will to fuse them together. And that's when Brock goes and turns his regular ordinary rock into a dude, and Nurse Joy leaves. In Mount Moon, we go ahead and grab ourselves a Cleffa, and then we run into Team Rocket, who's attempting some sort of triple fusion. And while that seems super awesome, it's probably super evil because, you know, Team Rocket. But after we beat up this rock enthusiast, their fusion machine explodes, resulting in their 3 rocket starters turning into some kind of sentient goo, and Team Rocket scattering to the wind, and not even picking up any of their equipment, which is super rude, but will be super convenient for us in the postgame. Our Rhyhorn then goes ahead and evolves into a Rayuni, and we take our Magikarp, evolve it into Gyarados, and then fuse it up with Gible to get ourselves a Garabol. Next up, we run into Rando over on Nugget Bridge, where he's just staring out into the sea. He says that it's calling to him, that he longs to be the greatest pirate lord that's ever lived, and the battle begins. Rando starts off by sending in Cottonix, and we send in our Garabol. Going for a Dragon Rage, we take him way down into the red, as a Mega Drain does quite a bit of damage to us due to our typing. After Rando heals up, we manage to take it down after 2 more Dragon Rages, but we do get stunned with Stun Spore. When Solovie comes in, he goes for a quick attack, taking us down to our Berry, and we can go for a Bite, bringing him down pretty low. Solovie then goes for a Psy-Wave, as 1 more Bite goes ahead and takes it down. Out next is Niniard, so we're going to go ahead and swap out, sending in our Bunny as a Sand attack lowers our accuracy. But lucky for us, we can follow up with 2 Bulldozes, taking it down, and it never gets to make use of its Defiant. Finally, this regular ordinary fish comes in, and we take care of it pretty quickly. Grab a Solus, and then we head over to face off against Misty and her Ice Pokemon. She starts things off by sending in Galarian, and we're going to send in Garabol. Not sure why I don't just go for Dragon Rage here, but after a couple of Rock Tombs and Misty using our potion, we can easily take down the Bunny. When Manras comes in, an Icy Wind does quite a bit of damage to us, as a Wing attack then gets us just below half. After following up with a couple of Dragon Rages, we manage to secure our Cascade Badge. Then while fighting our way over to Vermilion City, we're going to go ahead and grab ourselves a bunch of new friends, as well as a couple of trade encounters as well. And while fighting on the SSN, our Garabol's going to go ahead and evolve into a Garabite. Next up, our Shroombone is going to go through its first evolution, becoming a Braybone. And what kind of ground run would it be if I didn't go ahead and fuse these 2 together to get ourselves a Charking? Then fusing up Nidoqueen with Clefable, we get ourselves a Clefqueen, and I absolutely adore the little moon marking on her tummy. Over on the SSN, we run into Rando, who's now referring to himself as Captain Rando, King of the High Seas. I had no idea this was his boat. When did Rando get so rich? Oh wait, he's an oak. Starting off with Cottonuxio, we go ahead and send in our Breebone, who can't Leech Seed us no matter how badly he tries. And after a couple of Boomerangs and a heal, we go ahead and take him down. Out next is his Niniard, and going for a Mach Punch, we go ahead and do just a little bit of damage as a Feint Attack comes in, and he follows up with a Rock Tomb. After we go for a Boomerang on the following turn, we manage to take it out without too much trouble. When Slugbass comes in, another Boomerang gets us the Oko, which is going to lead into Solavie. But before the Yawn can put us to sleep, we go ahead and swap out, sending in our Garabite, who gets swifted for a lot more damage than I would have expected. After hitting it with a Dragon Rage and then healing up with a Berry, it goes ahead and starts setting up Calm Minds. But fortunately for me, it has less than 40 HP left, and one more Dragon Rage takes it down, defeating Rando. And with that taken care of, it's now time for us to take on Lieutenant Surge and his fighting Pokemon. When Nosekeys comes out, we go ahead and send in our Clefqueen, going for a Minimize. After we max out our stacks, all it does is manage to hit us with one Side Swing Toss and set up some rocks, so we go for a Smoochie Kiss, getting it way down into the red. And after Surge heals up, only 2 more hits manage to take the Nosekeys down. When Coughloom comes out, it goes ahead and reverses everything that I did with a Clear Smog, which is super annoying, but we still managed to take it out after getting knocked down just about half with a Bullet Seed. When his Ace Houndblade comes in, it goes for a bulk up, but it doesn't matter because a ×4 Draining Kiss is all it takes to take this bad boy down, and it's time for us to meet a bunch of new friends on our way to Lavender Town. And after meeting those friends, our Braybone goes ahead and evolves into a Braywhack, but while that fusion is cool, the reverse is even better. Check out Mariloom. We run into Rando over in Lavender Town where he says he's mourning the loss of his crew, but I'm pretty sure they just kicked him off the SSN because he didn't actually own the boat. Enraged that I would even dare accuse the infamous Captain Rando of lying, a Pokemon battle begins, because of course it does. Our fully evolved Mariloom comes in going for a Boomerang and it absolutely destroys the Whimsiccio. When the Duo V comes in, I decide to go for a Mach Punch, and the Technician boosted Stab critical hit is more than enough to take down this Psychic Pokemon. Litsil comes in next, going for a Shadow Claw, but we go ahead and throw our stick at it, getting ourselves the KO. And after we hit X-Gon way down into the red, a Dual Chop goes ahead knocking us down just below half, which then can go ahead and activate our Berry. After Rando heals up with a Super Potion, we get lucky with another crit Mach Punch, getting ourselves the Oko. When Niniard comes in, it goes ahead and U-turns out, sending in Slugbass, who just comes in to die. And with Niniard back in, there's nowhere left for it to run, and one Boomerang gets us the KO, and we defeat Rando. On the opposite side of the room, we go ahead and hear some screaming, so after investigating it, we see that Team Rocket's interrogating this older guy. After dragging him up the stairs, Rando says that he needs to go acquire us a vessel capable of getting to the top of the tower, and he runs off into the distance. I don't know if boats work that way, dude. On our way to Celadon City, we're going to run into a bunch of new encounters, as well as grab a Dragonite and an Eevee. And now we're going to go ahead and tie a balloon string to the end of Stunfisk, and we get this thing. And after force feeding it a bunch of candy, Stunloon is going to go ahead and evolve into Stunlimb. Next up, our Charking is going to go ahead and evolve into Charking, but don't worry, we're going to use the sprite that everybody uses. We find Rando sitting in a cardboard box in this sewer runoff, facing off against 2 Rocket Grunts who he can handle without any issue. After they run off, he says he needs to acquire a new vessel because this one is waterlogged, and I'm not sure what he's talking about because that's a cardboard box, my guy. But anyways, he runs off to the department store to get himself a new boat, and Erica comes over asking if we can help her out with dealing with Team Rocket, which we promptly do. After Erica and I make it to the back of Team Rocket's secret base, it's time for me to face off against Giovanni and get them out of Celadon for good, and also give us those ghost goggles to save that old guy. He starts off by sending in the Smoking Bird, and we send in our Charking. A Flamethrower does massive damage to the Haunch thing, bringing him way down into the red, as a Sludge Bomb does basically nothing to us. After Giovanni heals up with a max potion, a high roll on our next flamethrower, go ahead and grab us the Oko. Up next is Kekgon, and we go for an Ice Beam, doing some pretty good damage, popping his balloon as a Rock Slide comes in, getting us just below half. But this does let us follow up with another Ice Beam for the KO. Smeargar comes in next, going for a Hyper Beam, which does some pretty good damage to us as we get him way down into the red with a flamethrower. Fortunately for us, he has to recharge, so one more flamethrower KOs the Gengar. When Disdain comes in, I know that I need to swap out, so I do, sending in Clef Queen. An Ice Beam does some absolutely massive damage to us, getting us into the red on the second hit as we go for a Water Pulse, getting it way down into the red. Afraid to swap out, I decide to keep Clef Queen in, which was a mistake because a flamethrower comes in KOing our queen. Once I can send in Garabite in, we clean up Giovanni, kicking them out of Celadon. And now it's time for us to face off against Erica and her bug Pokemon. She starts off by sending in Galvanape, and we're going to send in Charking. Galvanape immediately U-turns out, sending in Roaster, who goes down in one shot. Galvanape then comes back in just to U-turn again, this time sacrificing Volcanics, who gets knocked down way into the red on our first hit. For some reason, Erica doesn't heal up, and we go ahead and take it down on the following turn. Once Galvanape comes back in, a Rock Slide does some pretty decent damage to us, but one and done, baby. Rainbow Badge. After heading home to grab a Bulbasaur from our sister, we then go ahead and get a Yamask, Marill, as well as a Vigoroth Heracross. While we're fighting our way over to Future City, our Ryrunny's going to go ahead and evolve into this thing. And now it's time for us to take on Koga and his Dark-type Pokemon. Weirion comes in, but we know that this isn't really a Weirion and it's a dirty Zoric trick as we get knocked down to about half. After Koga goes ahead and heals up, we go ahead and use a Draining Kiss, getting ourselves back up to full before a Flamethrower takes down the Reoarch. When Abtop comes in, it only takes us one Draining Kiss to grab ourselves the KO. Once Haunchfire comes in, a Sucker Punch does some pretty massive damage to us, but a Draining Kiss goes ahead and tops us back off as Koga goes ahead and uses his second potion. Another Sucker Punch comes in, doing some good damage to us, but one more Draining Kiss gets us the KO. Next up, the real Weirion comes in, and the Draining Kiss does basically nothing, but it does heal us back up to full, which is nice. On the following turn, we go for a Flamethrower as he goes for a Toxic for some reason. And after one more Flamethrower, we KO Koga, earning our Soul Badge. While fighting our way through Silphco, we're going to go ahead and finally just use up our Swampert with Venusaur and get ourselves this amazing Venipert. At the top of Silphco, we run into Rando yet again, who says he's after Team Rocket's Triple Fusion machine. Once he can master the art of Triple Fusion, no one will dare challenge him on the high seas, and a battle breaks out once again. Rando sends in his Whimsray, and we go ahead and send in Charking. After setting up a substitute and we break it, we can manage to get the KO on the following turn, but not without a Giga Drain doing a decent amount of damage to us. Once Magtic comes in, we're going to send in Venipert, and after tanking a couple of pretty big hits and getting burnt, we manage to just barely take it down with a Petal Dance. Once Lampsil comes in and we're confused, we go ahead and swap Venipert out, sending Charking back in, tanking a Shadow Ball. And at this point, we go for an Earth Power, doing some pretty big damage as he goes ahead and keeps on using fire moves on us for some reason, and we KO with a Smooch. Ryupion comes in, going ahead getting us way down into the red with a Psychic as we do barely anything to this thing. So we go ahead and swap out into Stiffblim. Going for a Hex, we do next to nothing as he heals up with the Morning Sun. So it's at this point that I decide to go ahead and max out my evasion and then go for a Will-O-Wisp. Now with our Hex doing a heck of a lot more damage, we go ahead and keep on spamming that until this Eevee eventually goes down. When Fragon comes in, I'm going to go ahead and swap out, sending in Garabite, who managed to go down just after 2 Dragon Claws, and I'm not sure where those claws are coming from, but we don't have to think about it right now. Niniard comes in, delivering 2 gigantic hits to us, and we go ahead and swap out, sending in Mariloom. After he stacks up a Swords Dance, I'm going to go ahead and go for a Mach Punch, making sure we can secure the KO and defeat Rando. I tell Rando that the triple fusion machine isn't working yet, and we're here to save everybody in Silphco, and maybe, just maybe, the Silph President will give us something nice if he helps me save him. And Rando decides to help us out, this time. And a double battle between Rando, Giovanni, and I begin. He sends in Haunch Sing and Aegius, and we send in Charking and Imsaray. After setting up a very useful Tailwind, I go ahead and get Aegius down way into the red, and Whimsray goes down. After Giovanni heals up and burns the Aegius, we can go ahead and manage to take it down on the following turn. When Kekgon comes in, I go ahead and swap out, sending in Venipert. As it goes for a Rock Slide, absolutely annihilating Lampsill, and a Sludge Bomb gets me down to nearly half. Healing up on the following turn, Kekgon then goes for an Earthquake, doing some pretty massive damage before the Haunch Thing just straight up explodes, nearly clearing the field. I try to go for a Synthesis again, but I'm too slow as the Donzing and Kekgon go ahead doubling into my slot, absolutely decimating my second Pokemon this run. Now with Garabite in, we start trading back and forth, but to where the Vaporeon can go ahead and take down the Kekgon, leaving only the Donzor who takes down his Eevee. But one more Aqua Tail from our Garabite managed to grab us the KO, and with that, we defeat Giovanni, ejecting them from Saffron. But with Giovanni taken care of, another problem arises when we need to take on Sabrina and her Fairy-type Pokemon. Togatails is up first, so I go ahead and send in Garabite. After stacking up a couple of Dragon Dances, we managed to KO all three of Sabrina's first three Pokemon in just one shot, which is going to lead into Clefix. We then go ahead and swap up into Stunlimb, setting up a Burn. After maxing out our Evasion, now we're just going to start going for Hex. As we trade back and forth and Sabrina heals up a couple of times, eventually we can take down the big guy, securing our March Badge. Before heading over to Blaine, we go ahead and capture Duowl as well as a Squirtle. And then we're going to fuse up Murkrow with Sandile, getting us this silly little guy. Next up, Garabite goes ahead and evolves into Garachomp. And then Kruko goes ahead and evolves into Kruko, which is going to lead into us facing off against Blaine and his Psychic Pokemon. First off, he sends in this Haunted Ball Pit, and we send in Kruko. After getting hit pretty hard with his Zen Headbutt, we can go ahead going for a Crunch, doing about 50%. Blaine then goes ahead swapping out Mr. Kling, sending in Zykin. When we swap into Garachomp, Blaine then goes ahead and heals back up. Going for a Skyr Uppercut, he does some okay damage to us, and now we're going to start stacking up Dragon Dances. And after getting knocked down to our Berry and healing back up a bit, one Aqua Tail takes down the Zykin. When Octodor comes in, we get it down to his Focus Sash on the first hit, as a Seed Bomb comes in, knocking us down to just 2 HP. But lucky for us, I know I'm faster than everything that he has, and we grab the KO on Octodor. When Galchomp comes in, we're going to go and swap out, sending in Stunlimb, who gets 2 absolutely massive hits in on us before we set up the burn. Now that we're down super low, I go ahead and swap out into Charking, and after a couple of Flamethrowers and swapping around a little bit, we managed to take this big guy down. Mr. Kling comes back in just for us to go ahead and chomp it, and with that, we defeat Blaine. Before facing off against Zapmalkuno, we go ahead and evolve our Ryrunny into its final adorable working girl form. Heading over to Mount Ember because we just had a feeling something weird was happening over there. We see that Giovanni has not only managed to capture all 3 Kanto Legendary birds, but he's also mastered Triple Fusion. In with it, Zapmalkuno will become the most powerful Pokemon in existence. And he's ready to test this Pokemon on us. Sending in Zapmalkuno, we're going to go ahead and send in our Rhyperiorunny. Going for a Rock Slide, we do about 30% to all 3 of the Pokemon, which is a hell of a lot less than I expected. On the following turn, we can almost KO Articuno and Moltres, but our working girl goes down. Sending in Stunlimb, a Discharge can go ahead and take care of 2 of the 3 heads, leaving only Zapmalkuno. After that, we go ahead and set up a Will-O-Wisp and then just start hexing. After Giovanni uses a full restore, we can go ahead and start doing the same thing again until eventually Zapmokuno goes down. And with that, Giovanni disbands Team Rocket, going back to his gym. Heading back to Verena City, now it's time for us to embarrass Giovanni just one more time before we take on the Pokemon League. He starts off by sending in Disdain and copying our Stun Limb. My plan here is to get Giovanni to waste all of his full restores, so I just keep on burning him over and over and over again until he eventually swaps out, sending in his Snorking. Having my evasion maxed out and not wanting to swap out, I go ahead and just keep on spamming random moves until I get hit way down into the red and don't want to risk it. Setting in Kukro. After setting up a Sandstorm, the Snorking eventually goes down to its burn. When Coffee King comes in, I go ahead and set up a Tailwind, and I get O-Code by a Retaliate. Sending Garachomp in, we go ahead going for a Crunch, doing some pretty good damage to him, as a Hammer Arm comes in, doing about a third to us. On the following turn, Giovanni goes ahead and swaps out, sending Disdain back in, but lucky for us, a Crunch is more than enough to take this bad boy down. Coffee King then comes back in, but since I outspeed him, another Crunch KOs it as well. When Mapam comes in, I know how hard this thing can hit with its Technician, so we go ahead and swap out sending in our own Technician Pokemon. After we get knocked down to about half of the Karate Chop, 2 Mach Punches take down the little monkey man. Tyrannosaurus comes in as Giovanni's final Pokemon, setting the Sandstorm back up, which is great for us, and 1 Mach Punch is all it takes to KO Giovanni's final Pokemon, and we're moving on to the League. Now that we're at the Pokemon League, it's time for us to fill out our team with a couple of new friends. First up, we're going to go ahead and fuse up Turtwig with Squirtle. Next is going to be Slack Off with Swinub, and this little nub is such a cutie pie. But he's not so cute once he evolves. And I forgot to show it, but this is Blastera. Finally, we go ahead and fuse up Lapras with Donphan, and while it isn't the most advanced sprite in the world, it is highly effective. And I love the color swap. Starting things off, we have our Garachomp here with Aqua Tail, Ice Fang, Dragon Dance, and Earthquake. Up next, we have Mariloon with Boomerang, Thief, Seed Bomb, and Mach Punch. Charking with Draining Kiss, Earth Power, Flamethrower, and Thunderbolt. Saswine with Thunder Punch, Hammer Arm, Earthquake, and Slack Off. Lafan with Surf, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and Rain Dance. Ooh, we gotta get rid of that Rain Dance, actually. And Blastera with Giga Drain, Surf, Toxic, and Leech Seed. First up on our League Challenge is going to be Lorelei and her water Pokemon. She starts off by sending in Polion, and I'm going to send in Lapan. Going for a Flash Cannon that does basically nothing to us, and we go ahead and set up a Sandstorm to up everybody's special defense. Once we have that squared away, 2 Thunderbolts is all it takes down to take down this king. Garrett comes in, and we go ahead and pop its balloon, and he goes ahead and pops our berry. But after a couple of hits and a heal, we take it out no problem. Next up is Scartops, who comes in doing some decent damage to us with an Earthquake, but after a couple of Thunderbolts, it kills itself with Brave Bird. I didn't even know he had Brave Bird. King Star's out next, so we go ahead and swap out, sending in Blastera as he goes ahead and sets up a Shell Smash. It goes for a Rock Slide, doing barely anything to us, even with its up stats, so we go ahead and set up a Leech Seed. Going for a Waterfall on the following turn, it does a hell of a lot more damage, but a Giga Drain is all it takes for us to grab the KO. Pikachu is up next, and I absolutely hate this thing. So we go ahead and Toxic Stall it out and just wait a while until eventually it takes itself down. Finally, her Ace Milotina comes in, and I accidentally seed myself because of the Mirror Coat. So I go ahead and swap out, sending in Lafan, as an Aura Sphere comes in, knocking us down to just 31 HP. I go ahead and swap out again, sending in Garachomp, and at this point I just start stacking up a couple of Dragon Dances. A Hydro Pump comes in doing absolutely devastating damage to us, but after only 2 hits, we take down Lorelei's Pokemon, and we're moving on to Bruno. In Modern Mode, Bruno is a Rock-type trainer as opposed to a Fighting-type trainer, which is funny because his team is way harder as a bunch of rocks. He starts off with Tyranflame, and I go ahead and send in Garachomp. After setting up 3 Dragon Dances, I go for an Aqua Tail, grabbing ourselves the KO on Tyrannoflame. When Kriluff comes in, I go ahead going for an Ice Fang, grabbing ourselves the KO. Marorier comes in next, who I managed to grab Oko with an Aqua Tail, but when King Rung comes out, I always forget that this thing has Metal Burst. And even though I take it down to its sturdy, it gets the Oko on me. Sending in Blastera, I go ahead and go for a Toxic and a Leech Seed to chip this thing down a little bit before ultimately we take it out with a Giga Drain. Armasaur comes in, and I decide to go for a Toxic and then start draining this thing gradually. Until eventually going for a Surf, grabbing the KO. When Aerodon comes in as his final Pokemon, an Eruption comes in doing barely anything to me, and a Giga Drain gets him down to about 25%. After Bruno heals up, we can go ahead and safely grab the KO after a couple more drains, and it's time for us to take on Agatha. Now my normal plan with Agatha's Poison team is to just stack up and sweep since Clinkfish doesn't have any directly attacking moves. But since Garachomp's dead, I can't really do that. So after I pop its Sash on the first hit, I go ahead and take it down on the following turn. When Coriogon comes in, I can go ahead and get an Oko with an Earth Power, and then I remember that Hauntsing is levitating, so I can't kill it. So after some back and forthing using Agatha's second full restore and getting poisoned, I eventually need to swap out, sending in Lefan, who also gets taken down super low with this thing. It is an absolute monster. So this time I send in Blastera, who obviously gets poisoned as well. But after getting knocked down to just below half, we go ahead and safely KO it. Out next is her Clefairy, so I go ahead and swap out again, sending in Swine, and I get poisoned as well by the Toxic Spikes. But at least I can heal with Slack Off and take it down with an Earthquake. Mo comes in taking some massive damage from a Thunder Punch. Then we spend the next few rounds trading back and forth while healing in between, but ultimately my Swine can get the upper hand and grab the KO, defeating Agatha. Our final challenge of the Elite Four is going to be Lance and his Flying-type Pokemon. He starts off with Togaflame, and we're going to send in Lefan. Togaflame goes ahead and U-turns out immediately, sending in Septidactyl, who can tank our Thunderbolt no problem. And after getting slapped with a Leaf Blade to just 20 HP, we grab the KO with an Ice Beam. When Togaflame comes back in, I go ahead and swap out, sending in Sharking, tanking a Moonblast like it's nothing. Following up with an Aura Sphere, then U-turning out, we go ahead and use Thunderbolt on a Snorcore, bringing it down just below half. Now, for whatever reason, the AI doesn't remember that this thing has Poison Heal with the Toxic Orb, so Lance goes ahead using his full restores to heal up the poison twice. When Dark Knight comes in, keep in mind that this is pre-6.0, so it's not Flying type, it's Dragon type. So a ×4 Draining Kiss takes him down way into the red, and the second one gets the KO. Togaflame comes back in, hitting us with an Air Slash, activating our Berry. But 2 Thunderbolts grab us the KO, which is going to lead into Volcageon, who also goes down in 1 hit. And with Agent Menace as his only remaining Pokemon, we can go ahead and safely KO it with a Flamethrower, and we're moving on to Rando. We enter the Champion Chamber where Rando's sitting at the back of the room on a throne surrounded in treasure, holding a goblet, referring to himself once again as Captain Rando, King of the Pirates. He says that after we so handily defeated Giovanni, he went into Mount Ember, got their Triple Fusion technology, and he's been using it for himself to accumulate power, wealth, to become the pirate lord he knew he was always meant to be, ruler of the high seas. We may have the advantage on land, but we're in his domain now. I should also mention that his little throne is inside of a kiddie pool. That's why we're in his domain. Out next comes his triple fuse Torter Neon, so we go ahead and swap out, sending in Blastera, who goes for a Giga Drain, immediately getting us below half. Another Giga Drain manages to roll higher, and we get KO'd before we can get the Toxic off. Sending in Maraluma, Flare Blitz comes in, getting us to just about 50%, as we go for a Boomerang, getting him just below half. On the following turn, it goes for a Scald, getting the second KO of the battle. Once the Swine comes in, we go ahead and just start spamming Earthquakes, and eventually the Torter Neon stays down. Axomenace comes in, getting an Intimidate off, which is no good, so we go ahead and swap out into Lefan as he sets up a Dragon Dance. Axomenace then goes for an Earthquake, getting us just to about half, but lucky for us, a ×4 Ice Beam is more than enough to take down the dragon. Vaporeon comes in using a Hyper Voice, knocking us down to our berry as we set up a Sandstorm to up everybody's special defense. I then go ahead and swap back out into Charking since I can resist fairy moves. And going for a Flamethrower, we get her just below half, and on the following turn, Rando goes ahead and uses the full Restore, combined with his Wish to heal all the way up. Going for another Flamethrower, we do manage to get the burn off, which is awesome, and after another Draining Kiss, we manage to get the KO on his starter. Okay, Rando wasn't kidding about accumulating power because he literally has God on his team now. That's not fair. Staying in and risking it, a Stone Edge comes in, absolutely annihilating us. When Swine comes back in, and Retaliate goes ahead and gets us down to about half, which is a lot more than I expected. But lucky for us, an Earthquake from this burly boy is more than enough for the takedown. When Chandelvile comes in, our Thick Fat keeps us alive through a Blizzard, and then we get to heal up with a Slack Off. And after just a couple of more Earthquakes, we grab the KO, and we defeat Super Pirate King Captain Rando, and become the Pokemon League champions. And that, everyone, is how I beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Infinite Fusion using only ground-type Pokemon. If you liked the video, please make sure you go ahead and like it and leave a comment down below. And if you made it this far and you're not subscribed, what's wrong with you? Just give that button a little tickle. I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!